Okay, another look at True Oil application. I've given it about 2 hours since I did the back with True Oil, which we already seen, but what I'm going to do now is put an application on the top. I've got 3 pieces of rag ready. My experience on the back showed that some of the dye comes off when you apply the True Oil. I should imagine that slows down in subsequent coats, but in anticipation of that, I've got a couple of 3 pieces of rag so that I can use them for separate areas. So should there be any colour bleed, I can go one for the red around the outside and a piece in the centre, and a clean piece should either of those get too mucky to use. Okay, so let's give it a spin. Got the True Oil here. Move those pieces of rag off to one side. Normally I'd wear gloves. I did for the last application, but a bit tiresome. So I'm going to do this reasonably speedily and try and get the oil off my fingers pretty quickly. Okay, a little bit of oil on the rag. Start at the edges here and work it around and see what happens. Okay, it's going in very quickly. A little bit of colour coming off on the rag, not an awful lot. I've carefully gone over this with a tack rag first, just to make sure that any previous sanding debris was lifted off. Yeah, a little bit of colour coming off in that, as I suspected, so I'm going to run around the edge with the oil that's on here, sticking to the redder areas, of course, because there's just a little bit of bleed coming off of that. I'm not rubbing extremely hard, I just want to get a bit of a coat around the whole thing to begin with. Okay, I've got a bit of a sheen going on around that edge now, that's looking quite nice. Colour on the rag. Okay, a little bit more at this point. It would pay obviously to think about turning the rag to a clean portion, and I'm going to just go again, doing a similar thing, starting on the opposite side now, bringing that round, just to make sure this edge has got a good bit. I guess a circular motion would be good too, just to work it in a little bit. But again, I'm just avoiding going too far from the red edges as I do this, so there's not too much colour bleed going on elsewhere. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to cut down to another piece of rag. This is a clean towel, so shouldn't pick up any debris. Yeah, a little bit of colour transference coming off there as well, as anticipated. I'm not too worried if there's a bit more blending going on in this area of the guitar. Just don't really want to start pushing any of this colour into the red, or the red into this colour. So just a bit of a go over in these areas, like so. Spin the rag. I've still got a bit of oil sitting on there, but I'm going to go for a fresh little top up on there and try and run a little bit down these in between areas just here, getting towards the red again, but not straying too far that way, hopefully, and not picking up too much red Still getting some orange and yellow coming through with that as we come through these areas. That's okay. And a bit more of a spin round. Oops. With the rag. And there are a few pits and marks that I couldn't quite be asked to sand all the way out. And not only that, I'm kind of aiming slightly for a vintage look on this. I don't necessarily want the whole thing to look like it was shinily built yesterday. So, you know, one or two small pits and stuff that involved a lot of sanding to get out. I kind of thought, you know what? First time I use it, I'm probably going to put a knock or two on it. That's what makes them yours. Okay, it's not looking bad. Taking yet another clean piece of rag because it's swallowing this oil on the first go. Chuck a bit more on the cloth, and I'm just thinking of running around those outsides again. Just hungrily taking all this in. Give this kind of last pass like this, and you can see there's quite a lot gleaming on the surface there. It doesn't need to lay there for any length of time, I don't suppose. See, it's picking up a bit of colour. Turn the rag again. There's quite a lot of oil on the cloth, but hey, I'm not going to be pedantic about trying to work all of that right the way through. I'm going to take another clean piece of cloth probably in a moment and just give that a good wipe through. Okay, quite pleased with that. My motions here are being reasonably light. I'm not putting a load of pressure on the wood itself. I'm hoping that as this absorbs and we come back to it in a couple of hours time or more, I may actually leave this till tomorrow now, give it an overnight. I'm hoping that the next coat on would take less colour off in application. I think that to be on the safe side I will be, from everything I've read and looked at, it's important to give a buff with some steel wool after this has had a couple of hours or more to soak in. As I say, I'm probably going to leave this overnight. You need to give it a bit of a key for the next coat of oil to go on, because the oil won't stick to the oil, it will stick to the pits and the abrasions you put in the surface with some, I think I've got some 4-0, I'll go with that I think and see how that turns out. Just dropped a rag on the floor, I'm sure, because if you're watching would realise having done that you wouldn't use it again. Okay. Not too bad, not too bad. Again, first coat, so I'm not going to be too critical. I've got this little thing here which is just a piece of kitchen towel on a soft flexible pad, nothing abrasive. And I'm just going to make sure that any little bits of excess oil just come through like that. I don't see the sense of all that laying there. This gets, you know, 7 or 8 applications, so I'd rather not it sit there with excess and give me too many streaking problems or whatever in the next application. And of course it'll also focus me on any areas that might need attention.